Absolute Reality is one of my favourite checkpoints, capable of diverse pieces of art with a realistic art style, giving you more control over your work than some other checkpoints which also promise realism. And we'll be having a look at this checkpoint, running some tests, and seeing what version 1.8.1 can really do. Drop a like to support the channel, and thank you all for your support over the last few months. But enough chit chat, let me give it to you bite-sized. Absolute Reality is a checkpoint developed by Lycon, and we're presented with a variety of cinematic images, from a fantasy knight to a cyberpunk character, a budget Iron Man, and even a discount Doomsday. And while the negative prompts use simple embeddings, the prompts are large and varied enough to describe a variety of images, giving us results which appear to be diverse, and I'm keen to see how much accuracy we can get using our own prompts. I'm using version 1.8.1, and looking at the description, the author recommends we use the CFG scale between 4.5 and 10, with steps between 25 and 30, and the DPM++ SDE Keras sampling method, with worse samplers requiring more steps. There are also some additional recommended settings for replicating the example images, such as ensuring DPM is not deterministic across batch sizes, a setting which can be found under Settings under Compatibility. And setting the ENSD, which is a value added onto our seed, to their specified number, and setting the clip skip to 2. They also caution against using face restore, but I never use this as I find After Detailer to be a far better option. They advise using simple prompts, advising against complex prompts, but I'm not sure what they classify as complex, as their examples were pretty complex in my opinion. They suggest using After Detailer to enhance faces, with a denoising strength under 0.3, and they use 2 negative embeddings, which I'll have linked in the description. You can also use High-Res Fix with the recommended settings such as 0.45 denoising strength, 20 high-res steps, and a high-res upscaler, which I'll also pop in the description as well. Now they recommend that you prompt for eye colours, hairstyles and other factors with celebrity names functioning, which is good to hear, as it seems like the author is promoting just how diverse you can make your designs. The author also states that you should add some ISO noise through using external tools for post-processing, which can help the photo appear more real. And the ISO noise is somewhat like film grain or noise, which you can see in some older photos, but I won't be relying on external tools to achieve realism, as I want to see what the checkpoint can do on its own. Finally, the author ends by stating you can use Dream Shaper 6 in combination with this checkpoint for more variation, and provides an overview of the model story and the difference with Dream Shaper, before providing some useful resources like the embeddings and the add detail LoRa. Now that we've explored the settings, I want to run this example image of a knight through Stable Diffusion to see if we can replicate the results, enabling After Detailer as the generation data were already filled in the settings for us. The result came out fantastic, with minimal differences between our result and the example image. I ran a test against the most 3 popular VAs to see if they would make any adjustments. The differences are minute, with anything V3 giving the worst results, and minimal improvements between Anime 2 and 840,000. But it looked to me like using a VA was an overall net positive on the image, and since this isn't an anime checkpoint, I'd recommend the 840,000 VA as the first port of call, with Anime 2 coming in second. Next, I wanted to see what impact the negative embeddings were having on the image, and whether they really made much of a difference, and after generating some comparison images, we can see that they make a massive difference compared to not using them at all. I noticed that the Bad Dream embedding provided the realism, while Unrealistic Dream seemed to provide the lighting and contrast, so combined we get this improved image which sits between the two. But despite this, the image without the negative embedding isn't bad at all and looks more realistic in some areas like the armor. Next, I wanted to run some tests against the settings to see how they impacted the image. Starting with the CFG scale, I noticed that a lower CFG resembles an image closer to a photo, while a higher CFG adds more cinematic effects, due to our prompts including words like cinematic lighting, Octane render, and Unreal Engine. Next, testing our sampling steps, I didn't notice any major quality differences between 25 and 30 without squinting my eyes to compare each pixel. I then moved on to testing 2 other samplers for comparison, using a sampling step of 20, which the example used, and 40 for a higher number on the weaker samplers like EULA and DDIM. You can see the comparisons here, and while DPM++ SDE Keras takes the lead for quality, EULA A comes in second, followed by DDIM. I usually prefer a clip skip of 1, but the example used a clip skip of 2, so I've done a comparison here to see whether there's any major impacts, and we can see some major differences from 1 to 4. 1 gives us the most detail from the reflection in the armor and better contrast, whilst 2 isn't a bad result, but there's some really dark areas and we lack the same metal reflections we had before. 3 looks even less detailed, with the armor having less variety and becoming increasingly nude, while 4 just turns the armor into a full push-up bra, while having some really dark areas which doesn't look as nice as our better images. Lastly, the checkpoint suggested that you do not use face restore, and I wanted to show you why that recommendation was made. On the left, we have face restore turned on, and as you can see, our knight looks like they received one too many flails to the helmet, while the image on the right is far better. Next, I wanted to generate our own custom image so we could try out some style adjustments and see what this checkpoint was capable of achieving. I noticed that my colours weren't coming out as I described, but we have tools we can use to fix that later on once we've done the rest of our tests. For the first test, I've run some celebrity names through the checkpoint and we get some really uncanny results even without waiting. I think the strongest faces are Michael Jackson, who's wondering why he's black, Barack Obama looking quite angry I've given him boobs, and Britney Spears wondering why she has hair, with Madonna and Billie Eilish blending in quite nicely. I'd highly suggest using a lower weighting when trying to blend faces, as these came through quite strongly without using any weighting at all, but all in all, this test was a success. My next test is on the art style, to see if we can try and get an anime style or something a bit different, and after running a few prompts, there weren't any changes that I noticed in the art style, even on a higher weighting. But the prompts for the art style seem to be adjusting the clothes and the style of the character instead, so be aware that your changes may be unintended if you try to change the art style. Next is skin tones, and the results were excellent as my prompts were recognised and I got a nice gradient of skin tones from light to dark. The purple skin tone turned my character's clothing and hair purple, so if you're looking to make a purple skin character, then you may want to use Allura to avoid any artifacts. I also saw that this checkpoint could do vehicles, so I figured why not throw that into the mix and try to generate some within our images. Most of the images place the vehicle in the background, but other than the van, we seem to get everything we needed from the prompts. I tried to do the vehicles exclusively so we can see the quality and we get some impressive and very dramatic results, capturing all of the vehicles we expected to see. I also like how the colours of the vehicles make sense and fit nicely within the image's overall style. The last style adjustment I wanted to try was a creature style prompt, as one of the example images was a lizard creature. Without weighting, there wasn't any impact, but after adding some weighting, I was able to get some of those elements of the description coming through to varying degrees. I especially like how the zombie looks like an actual zombie, but the other images look like cheap cosplays for an anime convention. Now the colours weren't accurate in my previous image, so I used the following layout on Regional Prompter to get the colours allocated correctly, which vastly improved the overall result and gave me an easy way to control how the image looks. I really like how this image turned out, despite the lack of glowing neon eyes to give the character that cyberpunk look. Now Absolute Reality doesn't have any examples of landscapes, but I wanted to generate just a few to see what it could do. My first piece is a cyberpunk city, and everything looks pretty much accurate to what I imagined with the rain and colours within the gloomy setting. Although you should be careful, as the text doesn't make much sense on the storefronts, which may bring down the quality of your work unless some manual editing is done. I have this forest landscape, which borders on realistic and stylized, reminding me of those Microsoft wallpapers you will see when logging onto your computer. I have no issues with any of these pieces, and I like how the water looks, but those waterfalls start to lose their accuracy when you zoom up close. Finally, I did a space station with some smoke and a vent, and the third image did include some smoke, even if it looks a bit low resolution. The middle image has various shapes and grates which look very science fiction, and the first image does also have smoke, but it's a strange image where the smoke seems to have merged with the space station. Overall, this checkpoint can handle landscapes very well without many issues. But what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comment section below, and consider supporting the channel through the links in the description. This is Bite Size Genius, and I hope you enjoyed.